Heartwarming discovery. 12-year-old girl exposed hidden symptoms, saving a billionaire's daughter. Lily Thompson sat in her health class, a whirlwind of thoughts swirling in her head. The teacher was droning on, but her gaze was fixed on Sophie Harrison, sophisticated, polished, and seemingly perfect. As the daughter of a billionaire, Sophie had everything she could wish for, yet in that moment, something didn't sit right. A heaviness lingered in the air around Sophie, invisible yet palpable, and Lily, with her keen instinct, couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than just a sense of entitlement behind those glossy eyes. As the bell rang, signaling the end of class, Lily made a resolution. She was determined to figure out what was going on with Sophie. However, her classmates laughed when she voiced her concern. "You're worried about her? Like she doesn't have everything already?" they jeered, dismissing her intentions as foolish. But Lily's heart was walloping in her chest. She saw Sophie through a different lens, a lens shaped by her working-class upbringing. Her mother, a dedicated school nurse, and her father, juggling multiple jobs, had instilled a deep sense of empathy in her. Weeks passed, and Lily couldn't get Sophie out of her mind. Every giggle from their peers felt like daggers when Sophie shrank back from the laughter, or when her eyes shimmered with unshed tears during lunch. It seemed that, beneath the layers of designer clothes, she was lost among them. The day Lily saw Sophie at a community charity event, she knew she was right. There Sophie was, shining like a diamond in the rough, yet isolated, standing off to the side, her perfect smile faltering. Lily felt a pang of recognition. She, too, had felt invisible. She approached Sophie, tentatively asking if she wanted to help with the event. Sophie seemed startled, her eyes widening, but then softening as she nodded. As they decorated the hall, the honest glint of connection sparked. "You seem different from the others," Sophie confessed as she fiddled with a glittery centerpiece. "It's like they see me, but don't really know me." Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As weeks crawled by, Lily noticed more red flags: the fatigue in Sophie's eyes, the way she flinched at the loud laughter, and her frequent isolations when she should be been brightening the room. It wasn't just shyness. It felt like a cry for help. It sparked a fire in Lily. She began to talk to adults, spreading Sophia's story, but her worries were brushed aside. "She'll be fine. They're used to a different world," they'd say. But Lily wasn't having it. Then came the moment of truth. Lily dissected the signs, laying everything bare. It all clicked during their candid conversation one afternoon, a moment where their guards slipped. She could see it all: the pressures, the expectations, and loneliness buried deep within Sophie. For a moment, they both stood at a precipice, unsure of how to cross into each other's worlds. As the chapter closes, both families face a crisis, drawing them toward each other and sparking change. The question lingers: can they truly bridge the divide? And just as the weight of the world tightened around Lily's chest, the community waited with bated breath, ready to witness a terrifying yet hopeful transformation. The community buzzed with tension as the crisis unfolded. Rumors spread like wildfire, stoking both concern and curiosity. Everyone weighed in with their opinions, but Lily's focus sharpened on one truth: Sophie needed support. Every day at school felt heavy now. As the pressure mounted, Sophie seemed even more distant, trapped in a bubble of expectations from her family. At lunch, instead of the usual giggles, a silence swallowed the table whole. Lily's heart sank each time she caught Sophia's eye, the flicker of recognition between them growing stronger, yet more painful. On Friday afternoon, things reached a boiling point. The school organized an assembly addressing mental health, a subject Lily had championed among her friends. As the principal stood at the podium, voices echoing in the auditorium, she glanced over at Sophie. She could see the wave of discomfort wash over her friend, thin shoulders tense, eyes flickering downward. Tonight's topic is one that touches us all, the principal said. It's important to remember we're never alone, even when it feels like we are. Lily watched Sophia's fingers drum nervously against her thigh. It ignited something within Lily, a feeling of urgency. She needed to act. After the assembly, she approached Sophie outside, the sun dipping low on the horizon. "Hey, do you want to talk?" she asked gently, her breath fogging in the cool air. For a brief moment, uncertainty flickered in Sophia's eyes, but then she nodded slightly. They found a quiet corner by a massive oak tree, its branches reaching out like inviting arms. "What is going on with you?" Lily inquired, her voice steady yet warm. She was done tiptoeing around the issue. Sophie looked at her, a storm of emotions brewing beneath the surface. "I don't know how to be me, it's like they all expect something from me." Sophie's voice trembled, and Lily's heart broke at the vulnerability laid bare before her. "I try to smile, but I just can't feel it anymore." Lily stepped closer, narrowing the gap between their worlds. "You're allowed to feel that way. You can show your true self to me. I won't judge you," she pledged, her eyes locking onto Sophie's. For the first time, there was a light in Sophie's eyes that hadn't been there before, a small flicker of hope. As they spoke, the conversation rolled like a river, unveiling deep-seated fears and aspirations. Sophie shared how each compliment felt like a weight, and every perfect daughter remark cut deeper than any knife. "I just want to be me," she whispered, and Lily felt a wave of understanding wash over her. Later, as the evening shadows elongated and silence blanketed the park, they emerged from their cocoon, two souls forged in honesty. Sophia's smile was tentative but alive as they walked back. Lily realized their connection had forged a bridge. But the road ahead was fraught with challenges, and they weren't out of the woods yet. They both knew navigating Sophie's world and Lily's was about to get even trickier. Just as they reached the curb, a car pulled up, a sleek, black sedan that contrasted with their journey. Lily's heart raced. The driver stepped out, and as their eyes locked, she instantly recognized him. Sophia's father. What would he say? Would he even understand? The tension was palpable as he glanced from Sophie to Lily, and thick silence filled the air. What lay ahead was uncharted territory, and both girls felt the weight of buried truths ready to surface. Sophia's father stood there, his presence imposing against the quiet backdrop of the park. The way he scrutinized them filled the air with an uncomfortable tension. Lily could feel her palms start to sweat. She didn't know what to expect. Would he be angry? Confused? Protective? "Hey, Sophie," he said, his voice booming yet oddly careful, as if he were stepping on eggshells. "What are you doing out here?" Lily stepped slightly to the side, trying to give Sophie space. She could sense the weight of his question, the unspoken demands that hung heavily between them. Sophie's lips parted but no sound came out. Instead, her eyes dropped to the ground, and Lily caught the flicker of fear in her friend's gaze. "I was just," Sophie stammered, her fingers twisting the hem of her shirt. "Talking with Lily." Sophie's father shifted his attention to Lily, masking his surprise with a neutral expression. "And you are?" Lily felt her stomach churn. "I'm Lily, sir. We were discussing the assembly." "Assembly?" His brow furrowed, confusion crossing his features. "What assembly?" The ripple of anxiety coursed through the air. Lily hadn't imagined this reaction at all. She had expected a father who cared, who would ask about his daughter's well-being. But here he was, detached, like he wasn't even part of Sophie's world. The one on mental health, Lily said carefully. It's really important, right? He interrupted, a hint of impatience lacing his words. I know what it was about. But my daughter doesn't need to be talking about that stuff, especially with her grades slipping. Sophie flinched as if his words struck her hard. Lily wanted to defend her friend, to shout that this wasn't just about grades. But instead, she remained silent, unsure if she had a place in this moment. Sophie's face had fallen, the spark that had ignited just moments before snuffed out by her father's harsh tone. Dad, it's not just about grades, she said softly, almost pleading. It's about how I feel. He shook his head, his expression hardening, and Lily's heart sank as the moment hung heavy, full of unspoken truths. I'm not going to have this conversation here, he said curtly, spinning on his heel. Let us go home, Sophie. Sophie hesitated, then took a small step forward. But I can't. What did I say? He snapped, and the chill in his voice felt like shards of ice stabbing through the air. This time, Sophie's voice didn't waver. I want to talk to Lily. Just for a minute. Lily's breath caught in her throat. The tension crackled like electricity, and for a moment, time seemed to stretch. Sophie's father stared at her, incredulous, and yet, in that split second of hesitation, something shifted. Sophie stood taller, steadying herself, and Lily recognized the strength that flickered back to life. Fine, he finally relented, exhaling sharply. But just a minute. Sophie's relief was palpable, and she turned to Lily, a new determination in her eyes. I'll be okay. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out. I promise. As her father waited impatiently by the car, Lily felt the knot of fear slowly untangle. Whatever storm was brewing between father and daughter, one thing was certain. Sophie was ready to fight for herself. But would it be enough to break through her father's expectations? The thought hung between them like a fragile thread, and Lily grasped onto that hope tightly. Together, they took a small step closer to understanding what it meant to face the truth. But deep down, Lily knew this was only the beginning. What awaited them back at home? The uncertainty loomed heavy in the air, thick with unflinching questions about love, acceptance, and the courage required to break free. Lily's heart raced as she watched Sophie's father shuffle toward the car, the tension still crackling in the air. Sophie took a deep breath, a mix of determination and vulnerability flooding her eyes. Look, I need to talk to you about something important, she said, urgency coloring her tone. Lily leaned in closer, feeling the weight of those words. What could Sophie possibly reveal in just a minute? Lily, Sophie said, urgency in every syllable, I don't think I can do this alone anymore. My dad doesn't see it. He thinks if I just focus, everything will be fine. But it's not that simple. The sincerity in Sophie's voice tugged at Lily's heart. She wanted to reach out, to hug her, but that urge felt maddeningly out of place with the looming figure of Sophie's father. You're not alone, Sophie. I'll always be here for you, Lily reassured her, her voice barely above a whisper. Sophie's eyes glistened, and for a moment, the fear faded, replaced by a flicker of hope. It was that little moment of connection that reminded them both they were more than just the weight of their circumstances. Just tell him how you feel, Lily encouraged, her heart pounding. You've got this. The faintest ghost of a smile broke through as Sophie nodded. I will. I just wish it didn't feel so hard. Nothing worth it is ever easy, Lily replied. But you're stronger than you know. With a final glance toward her father, who was impatiently tapping his foot by the car, Sophie inhaled deeply. I'm going to try, she said, her voice soft yet resolute. Even if he doesn't understand. I have to let him know. A rush of pride swelled in Lily's chest. This was the moment. A chance for Sophie to break free, to speak her truth. They exchanged one last look, a silent agreement that they would face this journey together. It felt like they were standing on a cliff, ready to plunge into the unknown. As Sophie reluctantly turned back, Lily felt the ground under her shake with anxiety. Would her friend be able to voice the fear and confusion buried deep inside? Would her father really listen? Or would he shut her down? The car door swung open with an audible creak, and Sophie's father leaned in, his face impassive. "Now, Sophie, we're done here," he said, a hint of authority creeping into his voice. His gaze flicked back to Lily for a second, one of mild annoyance, as if she were a distraction he hadn't signed up for. But Sophie glanced at her dad with a newfound defiance. "Dad, wait!" she exclaimed, stepping forward, her voice steady. "I need you to promise me something." Lily held her breath, excitement and fear intertwining as she watched the scene unfold. For that brief moment, everything felt suspended in air. Sophie, with her request, and her father, caught in the crosshairs of his daughter's unexpected resolve. "What is it now?" he asked, an edge of irritation creeping in again. "I want you to listen." "Really listen," Sophie replied, her voice growing stronger. "I have to tell you how I feel about everything. It's important." Lily could see the flicker of confusion transform into something deeper in her father's eyes. There in the park, with only the whisper of the soft wind as their witness, a crucial shift trembled in the air, but the question lingered. Would Sophie's father really hear her? Would he take the time to understand the struggles his daughter faced? As the silence stretched out, tension brimming, Lily felt a sense of urgency rise within her. This moment was so much bigger than just the three of them. It was about acceptance, about the fight for understanding, and most importantly, about love. The world spun around her, but she focused on Sophie. They stood on the threshold, poised for something significant, something that could change everything. But as Sophie opened her mouth to speak, a loud honk from a passing car startled them all. The moment shattered, the odds stacked precariously against them again. And just like that, Lily knew the battle was far from over. What would happen if they couldn't find their voices? What if Sophie's father couldn't let go of his expectations? Sophie's determination pulsed before her, a light in the darkness. Yet doubt lingered. The real challenge had only just begun. Sophie took a shaky breath as she glanced back at her father. The moment felt too fragile, like a soap bubble ready to pop. His eyebrows knitted tightly together, his patience evidently wearing thin. Yet in her heart, Sophie felt something begin to shift. This was her chance to reclaim her voice. "Dad," she started, her voice louder now, brushing against the doubt swirling like a storm within her. "I don't want to pretend anymore." Lily's heart thudded in her chest. She could see that Sophie's father was taken aback. His rigid posture relaxed ever so slightly, offering a glimpse of curiosity in his eyes. "What do you mean?" he challenged, crossing his arms defensively, but the flicker of confusion was still there, and Lily held on to that hope. "I mean all the expectations you have for me? The pressure to excel, the plans you've mapped out?" Sophie paused, gauging his reaction. "It's suffocating. I feel like I'm drowning trying to meet all of that. I can't keep it up." A hush fell over the park. The wind, which had rustled through the leaves only moments before, seemed to still, almost transfixed by Sophie's words. But Sophie, her father finally responded, his voice softer. "I just want what is best for you." "I know, Dad. But what is best for me should be my choice, too," she said, each word gaining strength as she spoke. "What I love, who I want to be, these things matter. I'm not just your daughter, I'm me. And I need you to see me." Lily watched the struggle churn in Sophie's father's eyes, a flicker of understanding battling with confusion. It was the first time she had seen this depth in him, the possibility of partnership rather than ownership over his daughter as future. Maybe you could try talking to me, instead of just telling me what to do. Sophie's voice was stronger now, with the slightest hint of hope threading through it. Sophie's father opened his mouth, hesitated, then closed it again. A myriad of emotions passed over his face: frustration, anger, confusion, but at its core was something more tender. Something like love, perhaps. Just then, a laugh echoed from the other side of the park, piercing through the heavy silence. A group of kids raced past, their carefree joy a stark contrast to the heavy tension surrounding Sophie and her father. For a brief moment, that laughter reminded them that life endlessly moved forward, regardless of the struggles we faced. Sophie's father shifted his weight, his gaze softening as he peered into his daughter's troubled eyes. "I didn't realize," he started, his voice low. "I didn't know you felt this way." The clouds of misunderstanding began to lift, revealing the bright potential of genuine communication. "We should talk about everything you're feeling." "I'm sorry I haven't listened before," he admitted, genuine remorse flooding his tone. For the first time, a true connection sparked in the air. Tears brimmed in Sophie's eyes, but here stood her father, ready to hear her, truly hear her. It was a fragile beginning, but the seeds of understanding were planted. Lily felt a wave of relief wash over her. This was a breakthrough. They were inching towards a new chapter, one filled with possibilities. But just as she felt her own heart swell with pride for Sophie, a distant shout pulled her back. "Sophie! Dad!" It was one of her father's associates, bustling toward them with urgency. "We need to head back to the office. There's a situation that requires your immediate attention." The moment felt threatened again, hanging in the balance like a thread. Would they lose this chance to connect? Sophie's father grimaced as he turned his head, torn between responsibility and newfound hope. "I'll be right there," he called back, then turned his gaze back to Sophie, his expression earnest. "Let us continue this conversation, okay?" he promised, an edge of desperation in his tone. Sophie nodded, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. As the figure of her father began to retreat, Lily felt a whirlwind of emotions welling up. This felt like the dawn of something significant, but could they hold on to it? Could Sophie's father truly change? The answer loomed in the air between them, unanswered, as the moment hung like a weight. And as they moved toward the next chapter of their lives, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much larger journey. What would Sophie do if she had to fight for every bit of understanding? Little did they know, the stakes were about to get even higher. Sophie watched as her father walked away, his figure blending into the blur of the park. The moment had felt monumental, and now it was slipping through her fingers like sand. Her heart thudded in her chest, every beat a reminder of the weight of their conversation. "Dad, wait!" she shouted, but the plea felt small, lost in the distance. Just give him time," Lily whispered, stepping beside Sophie, trying to ground her friend in the whirlwind of emotions. Sophie turned to Lily, her eyes brimming with a mix of frustration and hope. What if he just goes back to business as usual? What if this was just a moment, and nothing changes? Lily bit her lip, wanting to reassure her friend but struggling to find the right words. "You opened up to him. That is huge, sophomore. He saw you. Even if it's hard, that little spark you created might be enough to ignite something bigger. Just remember that." Sophie nodded, but the doubt lingered. What if it's not enough? What if he goes back and forgets this moment? As they sat on the park bench, silence enveloped them. Kids continued to play in the background, their laughter echoing in stark contrast to the tension in Sophia's heart. She couldn't help but feel small and lost in a world where her voice often seemed silenced. "Want to take a walk?" Lily suggested, sensing Sophia's turmoil. "It might help clear your head." Sophie reluctantly agreed, and they started down the familiar park path. The sun filtered through the trees, casting warm golden dapples on the ground. With each step, Sophie tried to shake off the heaviness that clung to her. "What if I wrote him a letter?" she suddenly asked, turning to Lily. "A letter where I explain everything, my dreams and fears, and what I really want." Lily's eyes sparkled with excitement. "That's a great idea. You can put everything down without the pressure of a face-to-face conversation. You can say everything that's in your heart." Thinking about it made Sophie's pulse quicken. Maybe this could bridge the gap. It felt like a lifeline. "Yeah, I like that," she breathed, a tentative smile creeping onto her face. As they wandered through the park, Lily pointed out little things, the way a squirrel scurried up a tree, the couple sharing an umbrella, the vibrant flowers waving in the breeze. It felt good to draw Sophie back into the present, to fill her mind with small wonders rather than the looming shadow of uncertainty. Then, they passed a bench where an older couple sat, engrossed in each other's laughter. Sophie couldn't help but notice the way they shared glances, as if they were still teenagers in love. "Look at them," she said, her voice soft again. "How do they do it? How does love endure through everything?" "Maybe they learned to listen," Lily replied thoughtfully. "Or maybe they found ways to connect even when life got hard." The thought anchored Sophie, yet another thread weaving through the tapestry of her worries. As they made their way back toward the park's entrance, Sophie felt a buzzing energy alive in her heart. Her father might be busy today, but the door was open now. He just needed the right push to walk through it. "Lily, I think I'm going to write that letter. I'll do it when I get home. I want him to see all of me," Sophie declared, more confidently than she felt. "I'll help you if you want," Lily offered, her enthusiasm lifting them both. "Yes, let us do it." Their plan ignited a spark in Sophie, and she felt lighter, her worries swirling away like autumn leaves in a gentle breeze. Yet as they approached the park's exit, Sophie's thoughts darkened again. What if he doesn't change? Lily paused, looking at her friend with unwavering support. "Then at least you tried. It's going to take time, but you're strong. Trust that you're on the right path." Sophie paused, looking at the horizon where the sun began to dip low, painting the sky in brilliant colors. She took a deep breath. The fear still lingered, but so did the resolve. As they stepped out of the park, a sudden commotion drew their attention. A small crowd had gathered just a little way down the street. Curious, they headed closer, the anticipation buzzing in the air like the twilight itself, thick with something unexpected. Sophie couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was happening might just be another twist in her journey. What awaited them could change everything. As Sophie and Lily pushed through the crowd, a buzz of voices surrounded them, blending into a symphony of excitement and concern. People stood on their toes, craning their necks to catch a glimpse of whatever drama was unfolding. Sophie felt her heart race, not just from the thrill of the moment, but from the tightening knot of anxiety in her stomach. "What is going on?" she asked a woman nearby. The woman glanced at her, eyes wide. "There has been an accident. Someone collapsed. They say it might be serious." Sophie's breath caught. She had seen enough news stories about emergencies to know they could change lives in an instant. "Let us see if we can find out more," Lily suggested, tugging at Sophie's sleeve. They squeezed through the throng until finally they emerged closer to the front. A girl, maybe a few years older than them, lay on the ground, surrounded by paramedics. Her face was pale, and her breaths came in shallow gasps. The sight of the girl struggling for air made Sophie's heartbeat thud louder in her ears. Without thinking, Sophie stepped forward. "Is she okay?" she called out to the responders, a mix of fear and determination swirling within her. One of the paramedics turned, his face grim. "We need to get her stabilized, but we could use any information about her condition." Sophie felt a wave of urgency wash over her. I don't know her, but I can help. Just tell me what to do. The paramedic looked at her, assessing her sincerity. All right. Can you find someone who knows her? Her medical history could be crucial. Sophie turned back, scanning the crowd, searching for any sign of familiarity. And then she saw a woman standing at the edge of the circle. The woman was frantic, her hands trembling as she held a phone to her ear. That might be her mom, Lily murmured, pulling Sophie closer. Without another thought, they rushed to the woman. Excuse me, Sophie said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Is this your daughter? The woman looked down, her eyes wide with panic. Yes. Yes, that's my Emily. What happened? She collapsed, Lily interjected. They need information about her medical history. Do you know anything? The woman's hand flew to her mouth, horror and fear battling in her expression. Yes, she has asthma. It can be bad sometimes. But she had her inhaler with her. I know she did. Sophie felt a jolt of clarity. Can we find the inhaler? It could help. The woman nodded, shaking but with a flicker of hope igniting in her eyes. Yes. I put it in her backpack. Sophie turned back to the paramedics, her voice rising above the commotion. She has asthma. She just needs her inhaler. A paramedic nodded, sending someone to check the backpack while another continued to monitor Emily's condition. Sophie felt a rush of adrenaline, chasing away her fears. For a moment, the world around her faded. All she could focus on was the girl on the ground and her newfound purpose. As the minutes stretched, a voice broke through her concentration. Sophie! You did great! Lily squeezed her hand, pride lighting up her expression. Just then, a new paramedic came running back, an inhaler in hand. We got it! Sophie felt tears prick at her eyes as they handed the inhaler to the girl, who, against all odds, began to stabilize. Relief surged through the crowd, and the weight of anxiety began to lift. The basics of human compassion and connection had unleashed something powerful, but as Sophie regained her breath, her thoughts shifted dangerously back to her own situation. Her father. The letter. What if this heroic moment didn't change her life, but created an even deeper chasm? In the distance, sirens wailed, and as Emily began to breathe easier, Sophie was left with a vital question lingering in her heart. How could she harness this feeling of connection to mend her relationship with her father? As the crowd sighed in relief and dispersed slowly, Sophie turned to Lily, urgency coursing through her. We have to get home. I need to write that letter. Right now. But Lily looked at her with a furrowed brow. What if you don't know how yet? Sophie took a deep breath, determination sparking inside her. Then I'll figure it out. The path ahead was uncertain, but the fire within her had ignited too. She knew she had to confront the tensions waiting for her back home. And with that resolve, they hurried away from the scene, leaving behind echoes of the day's turmoil, but carrying with them the weight of another possibility. Sophie and Lily walked briskly down the bustling street, the afternoon sun casting long shadows as they navigated toward home. The vibrant colors of the world felt dimmed by the heaviness in Sophia's chest. Every step echoed her urgency, her thoughts swirling around the letter that lingered in her mind like a ghost. Can you believe it? Lily said, breaking the silence. You really helped that girl. You were amazing. Sophie forced a smile, but inside, she felt a knot of uncertainty. Yeah, it felt good, but it doesn't fix everything. She glanced sideways at her friend, who was still buzzing from the excitement. What if writing the letter just makes things worse? Lily considered this for a moment. You won't know until you try. Sometimes, putting things into words can make it easier. But what if it didn't? The last thing Sophie wanted was to add fuel to the fire. Her dad, and she had been living in the thick of tension for too long. She recalled the frustrated slams of doors, and the chilling silence that followed their arguments. What if her words fell flat, like her previous attempts to connect? They rounded the corner, and Sophie's eyes caught the familiar outlines of their neighborhood. Each house seemed a reminder of how things used to be, how laughter used to spill out of her home before the shadows crept in. The door stood ajar as they approached, a muted welcome that both soothed and unsettled her. "Okay, here we are," Lily said, stepping into the entryway. Sophie followed, her heart pounding in her ears. The air was still, a stark contrast to the chaos they'd just left behind. "Let us go to the kitchen," Sophie suggested, hoping the warmth of the room, the sense of home, could ground her. As they stepped inside, the familiar sight of the simple wooden table brought a swell of emotions. Taking a deep breath, Sophie reached for a pen and paper, her hand shaking slightly. "I can do this," she murmured as she sat down. She glanced at Lily. "Will you stay?" "Of course," Lily replied, her voice firm. "I'm right here." With the first stroke of the pen, letters swirled into words. "Dad, I need to talk to you." But the sentence fell flat as the memories of past conversations flooded back. How they had begun with promise, but spiraled into conflict. "What if he doesn't understand?" Sophie whispered, frustration bubbling inside her. Lily leaned closer, her eyes steady. "Just speak from your heart. You've got this. It doesn't have to be perfect." Sophie looked at her friend, grateful for the support. Maybe that was what she needed, to be bold and honest. She let the pen glide across the page, and soon, words poured out like water breaking through a dam. She spoke of her fear, her desire for connection, and her wish to mend the broken pieces of their relationship. Halfway through her letter, another thought sharpened her focus, the way she had felt when helping Emily. Was it possible that opening up could help them both heal? The vulnerability she thought she feared might just be the bridge they needed. As she scrawled her final thoughts, a sudden clatter echoed from the living room, pulling her from her writing. Sophie and Lily exchanged worried glances. "What was that?" "I don't know, but it sounded like it came from upstairs," Lily said. Sophie's heart raced again, but this time not from fear of the letter. "Let us check it out." They hurried through the house, pulses quickening with each step. Whatever was happening, Sophie felt an unexpected thrill course through her veins. Maybe exploring the unknown, be it in her family or in writing, was needed to unearth the truth beneath the surface. Upstairs, the door to her father's office was slightly ajar. More noises erupted, frustrated banging now punctuated by frustrated muttering. In a heartbeat, Sophie's mind raced. Could this be the moment she had been waiting for? Before she could talk herself out of it, Sophie pushed the door open, curiosity propelling her forward. What awaited her inside could change everything. And as she stepped into the office, she was met with a scene that would make her rethink everything about her family. What would she discover? Was the letter really her path to healing, or could this moment lead her somewhere truly unexpected? Sophie stepped into the office, her breath hitching in her throat. The room was dimly lit, cluttered with dusty books and papers strewn across the floor. But what struck her most was the sight of her father, his back turned to her, hovering over his desk. His hands were braced on the surface, trembling slightly. "Dad?" she called, her voice barely above a whisper. He jumped at the sound of her voice, spinning around with wide eyes that were a mirror of her own shock. For a fleeting moment, it seemed like something unspoken hung in the air between them, an unbridgeable chasm of silence and misunderstanding. "What are you doing here?" he stammered, a hint of irritation cutting through the confusion. "I heard noise," Sophie replied, her heart racing. "Are you all right?" He turned his gaze back to the desk. "I'm fine. Just misplaced some important papers." His tone was defensive, but she could see the tightness in his jaw. Sophie hesitated. This moment could go one of two ways. She could retreat and leave the door closed, locking them both into their separate realities. Or she could take a step forward, something she had been too afraid to do for far too long. As if sensing the gravity of the moment, Lily lingered at the doorway, unsure if she should interrupt. Sophie nodded at her friend, encouraging her to stay close. "Dad," Sophie pressed, her fingers slipping around the edge of the desk, "I need to talk to you about something important." He shifted uncomfortably, and for a fleeting second, a flicker of vulnerability crossed his face. What could possibly be important in a time like this? Her heart sank. How could he overlook the urgency of healing their broken relationship? Taking a deep breath, she gathered her courage. "I've been feeling really lost. It seems like we've been at odds for so long. I want us to talk, to fix things." He stared at her, and for a moment, Sophie thought he might just dismiss her words again, shove them aside like he had so many other times. But then, something in his expression shifted. The tension in his shoulders eased just a little, and she could see the uncertainty in his eyes. "Why now?" he asked, his voice softened. "Why after all this time?" "Because I don't want to keep pretending," she replied, her tone steadying as she pushed aside her fear. "I miss you, Dad. I miss us." His gaze softened, drawn into the gravity of her words. The vulnerability she had witnessed earlier began to unfold, and it felt like the beginning of a long-awaited conversation. But before he could respond, a loud crash echoed from downstairs, a sound that shattered the tender moment. Sophie's heart sank again. The universe had a cruel way of interrupting the moments that mattered most. "What was that?" Lily said, her eyes widening in worry. "I don't know," Sophie replied, a knot tightening in her chest. "Let us check." As they moved towards the door, her father suddenly stepped forward. "No! You two stay here," he insisted, his eyes narrowing. "I'll go see." "Dad, wait!" Sophie called after him. She felt a surge of panic. What if something's wrong? "Just stay put," he said firmly before disappearing out the door. "Do you think it's safe?" Lily asked, glancing at Sophie with concern. "I don't know," Sophie admitted, the unease overwhelming her. "But what if he is not okay?" They exchanged a look, an unspoken agreement passing between them. Together, they hurried down the stairs, unsure of what awaited them but certain that whatever it was would test the fragile thread of connection Sophie had just begun to weave with her father. As they reached the bottom, sounds of raised voices filled the air, and Sophie felt her heart race anew. A scream echoed from the dining room, a cry of pain that froze her in her tracks. What had they gotten themselves into? Would this moment bring them closer, or shatter everything they were trying to rebuild? Sophie's heart thundered as she and Lily dashed down the hallway, following the sounds of chaos. The scream echoed in her ears, each note sending icy fingers of fear racing down her spine. She could feel Lily's presence beside her, grounding her even as dread curled around her heart. As they entered the dining room, a scene unfolded that left Sophie momentarily stunned. Her father knelt on the floor, panic etched across his face, cradling a frail figure in his arms. A tear slipped down his cheek as he looked up at them, his eyes wild and desperate. "Call 911, he ordered, urgency breaking through the layer of tension that had settled between them over the years. Sophie felt as if time had stopped. A whirlwind of emotions crashed over her: fear, confusion, and something she never expected, empathy. The figure on the floor was her grandmother, a woman who had always been a supporting pillar in their family. Seeing her weaken like this ignited something deep within Sophie, a fierce protective instinct, and a need for connection. "Grandma!" Sophie cried, rushing to her side. She dropped to her knees beside her father, taking her grandmother's hand in hers, squeezing it tightly. "It's going to be okay, Grandma," Sophie assured, even as doubt gnawed at her heart. "The paramedics would be there soon. Just hold on." The tremors in her grandmother's body shook with the effort to speak. "Sophie, I'm proud of you always," she rasped. The pain in her voice made Sophie's heart ache. Just hearing those words filled her with a warmth she had yearned for, even amidst the chaos. Amidst the chaos, Sophie's father met her gaze, and for the first time, she saw vulnerability in his eyes that mirrored her own. The weight of misunderstanding dissipated, if only for that moment, as they focused solely on the urgency at hand. This shared fight for their beloved family member had created an unexpected bond, one that transcended the insecurities that had driven them apart. "What happened?" Lily asked, her voice steady, as she began to make the call. "I don't know," Sophie's father admitted helplessly, choking on the words. "I was just talking to her," and suddenly sirens blared in the distance, a sound that seemed to slice through the tension around them and bring a rush of fresh hope. The sight of emergency responders entering the house broke Sophie's freeze. They sprang into action, assessing her grandmother and seamlessly taking over. With a flurry of activity, they moved her onto a stretcher. "We've got her," one of the paramedics said, his voice firm and reassuring. "Just a precaution." "Can I go with her?" Sophie found her voice, feeling a surge of urgency. Her grandmother needed her. The paramedic nodded, allowing Sophie to stand beside her grandmother. As the stretcher was rolled out the door, Sophie felt a gentle squeeze on her hand, her father's fingers brushing against hers, both seeking comfort amid uncertainty. For the first time in too long, they were united. Lily offered a supportive smile as they stepped outside, the cold air hitting them like a splash of clarity. The sirens faded into the distance, and in the aftermath of the chaos, Sophie glanced at her father. He looked older, wearier, and more human. "Sophie, he started, before swallowing hard. "I need to speak to you too," Sophie interrupted gently. "I don't want us to keep putting off our conversation. If anything taught me today, it's that we can't keep waiting." His chest heaved with emotion. "You're right. I was wrong to prioritize everything else when I should have been listening." The sincerity of his words wrapped around her, holding hope in their embrace. "I want us to work on this together. We may have lost time, but we can build it back." Just then, her grandmother's frail voice echoed in Sophie's mind, a reminder of unconditional love. Listening is key, she had always told Sophie, her words ringing true now. "I'll help you," her father promised, his usually confident tone now cracked with vulnerability. "I'll do better." This simple oath rekindled a spark of hope. Sophie nodded, a small smile breaking through her worries. "We'll do this together." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting warm hues across the sky, Sophie turned to Lily, who stood nearby with unwavering support. Their journey had taken a turn she had never expected, and in this moment, Sophie realized they weren't just fighting for her and her father's connection. They were threading a tapestry of healing, acceptance, and love. An unexpected peace washed over her, mingling with determination. Sophie had stepped bravely into a whirlwind of challenges today, lending her voice where it mattered most. Not just for herself, but for the bonds that tied her family together. And now, it was time for the next chapter. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait not even one more second to share.